Empire.
Welcome to the latest edition of All's Caps with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzer. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino. As we're talking to you, it's Friday morning. The Capitals are 0-2-0 for the first time since the Adam Oates year, 2013, which I'm sure you remember, Karl. I don't know what you remember from that, but what are your thoughts on the Capitals 0-2 start before I give you mine?
Well, I don't like when you throw out an omen like that. That was, unfortunately, the worst year of hockey when I was here with the Caps. So let's.
Well, no. That was 13. You guys came back and made the playoffs that year. 13-14 is when you missed. So it wasn't. So it was.
Who was it? So
it was,
Adam Oates was the coach for the whole year that year.
Yeah, it was a shortened year. It was the 13 year where the lockout happened. You guys were the worst team in hockey for like the first 10 games. And I remember asking everybody in the room what the biggest problem with the team was, and then Ovi catches fire, and you guys make the playoffs.
Well, there you go. That's what it is. And, okay, well, I'll give you. I guess my opinion is maybe that's what the difference is, right? Is Ovi catches fire, Ovi and Kuzi.
Sure.
It was last year, right? They both started out so hot, and they're the number one guys, and for sure I'm not putting any blame on them, but. When your number one guys are coming out really strong, McDavid and Edmonton.
Look at that! That was insane.
Yeah, those guys can really dictate things at the beginning of the year, and that's when everybody's fresh too. So, a little bit quiet on the power play right now for the whole team, but I think that it will come. There's a lot of new faces on this team, right? So, trying to figure that out. Maybe running around a little bit more. On the defensive side of the game than they'd like to, but it's tough. It's a tough start. Boston was Boston. Their top line. It's exactly what I just said. The top line was sick the first night, and that's what happens. And then last night I watched a little bit more of that game, and yeah, they had chances on the power play to get themselves there. Charlie played unbelievable.
He did. He was great.
Let's just get that out there. He was awesome. But yeah, maybe a little bit disorganized looking from the amount of the games that I did watch. I think that's kind of my takeaway so far.
There were a couple of times in the opener where John Carlson, Gennady Kuznetsov, guys who played in the league for a while, just lost the puck in the ice. And I'm not even saying the ice was bad because the Bruins were playing on it too. It was just there were moments in the game where it's just something's off with everything. And the power play is 0 for 9 so far. I don't ask me to explain Eric Gustafsson on the second unit in the OV spot, but I think there's a lot of overthinking going on for a team that you're right, is trying to figure out a lot of new pieces, but as soon as Alex Ovechkin starts scoring, they're probably going to be fine.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think when he starts scoring, Kuzi starts doing some magic out there. That obviously helps a ton, but I'm curious, so Gustafsson on that in that OV spot, what is the play there, you think? Because he was there, they had Sprong there when he was here, right? And he can really hum the puck. I'm curious what obviously they see something in Gustafsson in that area, and he's got good hands. He's good offensive awareness, but I don't know what the right play is.
He's fine, but in theory, you look at that spot, and if you have a left shot there, that when Gustafsson, it's different. You have a right shot like Ovi there, and Connor Brown's a right shot. He pops it in on opening night. They score, and the game goes a little differently. That's the only thing I'm second guessing. They were practicing for a while though. Eric Gustafsson was in that spot, so clearly Blaine Forsythe and Peter Laviolette see something there.
Yeah, they must, and it is nice to throw different looks at the other team, right? If you have your first unit that sets up the way that they normally set up, and then throw guys on different hands. Toronto's a great example of that. They have their guys coming down the wall on their strong sides a lot of times, and it's challenging for a penalty kill, right? If you have a guy coming down on you from the wall with speed, they can shoot, they can pass, they can easily go back up to the point because it's not a backhand. It's a good look. It's nice to throw that option out at teams, but it is early, and I don't know exactly how much time they've had to work on it, but yeah, you don't want to start your penalty or your power play season off like that, because that's where you really need to be good, and that's where the team has historically been really good.
Yeah. A couple of times in the opener, I noticed one of the fans in front of the press box yell, "Shoot the puck." I immediately thought Karl would love this.
I would love that. Yeah, exactly. And it's look, I'm all for establishing a shot early. I think that's great because it makes the team think a little bit more. I'm also really in favor of when the guy's on the half wall or the goal line, just throw it in for a mad scramble too. Like I hated that because you
Yeah.
had no idea where it was going to bounce. It's hard to just clear the puck. You got to just whack it out to the corner, and it's not a fun play for anybody to have to make. So I like having making the penalty kill run around a little bit at the beginning, and then hopefully it opens up more up top. But just just I know I've said it before. Just shooting it from wherever, like up top, and just trying to get one through, it is so much harder than it sounds. Like just shoot the puck. I was looking for that all the time. When a power play, when someone just came down and wanted to throw a wrister through or just wind up for a shot, that's all I'm looking for because that's so easy to step in front of and bat down and then get it out of the zone. And a lot of times it can lead to an odd man rush too, especially as a D man if I can jump in front of my guy. So I understand frustration with wanting to take more shots, but it is so rare to score clean off of a shot from the point. It has to things just have to line up perfectly. So, there's frustration there from the fans. I get it, but just so everyone knows, it is much harder than it looks.
By the way, Dylan Strome is great at that, like throw the puck in for the mad scramble on the power play. Like he is great at from behind the net or wherever, just putting it on net. And there were a couple times in the opener where it could have pinballed in easily at that point. But on the shoot it thing, there were a couple times in the opener as well where guys just overpassed, like overthought it, whatever. As you think about it when you're watching from the press box, and you know this too, it looks a lot slower up there than it is down on the ice. So even as I'm thinking, okay, well, they like that puck's got to go on net, and overthinking. When these guys watch the film later, they'll realize it, and the adjustments are going to come.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the whole point of the video, right? Is to see where you have your opportunities and those will become set plays too, right? When they see that they have little gaps where they can maybe take a step to the side and shoot with we call like a flash screen or a flyby where the player in front will say be on the right side of the net and then all of a sudden just jump to the other side just to take away the eyes for a second of the goalie. Those will become plays, but guys are so good at just getting like you're always told just get something in the lane, right? Just try and find a way to block it. It happened to me so many times where I take a step off to the side to try and float one through, and it just hits the stick because the guy
Yeah.
knows to put a stick there at the right height, like the standard height, because I can't start a puck off 3 feet in the air and expect it to come back down
Right.
to net level, right? You can sky one if you want, but you can't tip it because it's too high. It's going to go over the net, and so you try and put one low, and those are cupcakes. Those are easy. I'm excited about those as a defensive player. So it's a really hard thing to do, but they're going to break it down. Foz is one of the best in the league at running a power play, and he knows what kind of players he has, and if he has to move them around into different positions and put Ovi somewhere else like at the end of the game where they tweak it where Ovi goes to the top, right?
Yep.
Carly goes down to the side. So they're going to figure out where they can do that better. In Toronto, like I don't know what their numbers are, but they're not bad on the PK. Like they pressure you and they pressure you with guys that they're not your typical PK guys where they just want to get it and dump it down the ice. Like these are guys that want to get it and go. So you have to be that much more careful. So it's tough at first, but it happens. So much props to Hall last night, just eating a couple from Ovi too. Like that's a hard spot to be in too, and they did it. So not the ideal start, but they're smart enough and good enough that they're going to tweak it.
Yeah, when we come back, we're going to talk to Mike Zeisberger from NHL.com a little more about the Toronto stuff. But I want one more question about the opener, I guess, and Darcy Kemper. To me, it wasn't a great game for him, and we've talked all the time. We're not goalie people, so we only can analyze so much. But bad rebound on the first goal by Patrice Bergeron, 5-hole goal, kind of beaten clean by Pastrnak. But the defense in front of him through the first two games has not been how you win.
Yeah, exactly. There's shots that are coming with a lot of traffic around too. Not necessarily just directly in front, but even traffic around makes a goalie think twice that maybe a puck's going to get tipped or something's going to happen. So, yeah, he's a good goalie, and you don't want to just be like, here, go ahead, make the saves. You gotta the team knows it, and they got to do as much as they can to make those saves easier, or the shots less contested. So he can see them. It didn't seem to really happen. Like I said, I only got to catch a little bit of that game, but from what I saw from the highlights, there was a lot of stuff going on around.
A lot of running around, yeah.
Yeah, and that makes it tough. It's hard for anybody to really settle in, and let's chalk it up to Boston and their perfection line and first game of the season. Just to try and look on the bright side here, but yeah, it's not ideal. But he's going to be fine. He's a huge body. Some of these pucks are just going to hit him instead of having to be a small guy in front and always trying to make the save. Some of them are just going to hit him because he's a massive human being. And that's going to be a good thing. And it's once a team settles down in front, I think it should be all right.
Speaking of massive human beings, next up on All's Caps will be joined by NHL.com's Mike Zeisberger. Welcome back to All's Caps with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzer. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino, and we are a year into this, and now our first repeat guest on this podcast, NHL.com, Mike Zeisberger, a very good friend of mine. Zeiss, thanks for joining us. And have you played pickleball before? Karl is going to play pickleball after this. Is pickleball a fond sport of yours?
Well, first of all, guys, thank you so much for having me on. I had a blast the first time. But this kind of reeks of desperation. A, that I would be the first repeat guest. I mean, come on. Second, Karl, pickleball, you're in the prime of your career, okay? Now, for somebody like myself that is just approaching middle age, that's a sport I should be looking into. But you, in the prime of your life?
Well, I would say that the reason why you're on as the first repeat guest is because you set the bar so high the first time. So we wanted to see if you could even go higher than that. But
how did you never win the Norris after a statement like that? That's all I want to know.
Hey, that's a great question. I'm still asking that question. But yeah, pickleball. I mean, I keep hearing so much about it. Like, it's such a wide range of people that can play, and I've been playing a little bit with my kids, and this is like my first real competitive pickleball match happening today. So I'm actually really excited about it. But the other sport actually is called paddle. I think that's coming in a little bit more, which is
I don't know what paddle is.
Paddle is like a hybrid of like tennis and squash. So it's got glass walls all around it, but it's a full tennis court, and the ball bounces off the walls and stuff like that. I highly recommend looking at some of these paddle highlights because it looks amazing. Guys are jumping out of the door. Like, there's doors on the side, and a ball will go out of play, and guys are running out of the door, out of the court, to go and get it and bring it back into play and then get back in the mix. It's taking Europe by storm, like the number one growing sport in Spain, France, I think England as well. So yeah, keep your eyes open for paddle.
Now, do we know what the genesis of the name pickleball is? Like, what does this have to do with gherkins or dills or anything like that?
I think they're the main sponsor behind it. I think they must have started it. They called it pickleball just to keep
money talks, eh?
Everyone's mind. No, I was joking around that when I was told that we were going to play pickleball today, that it was some sort of pickle taste testing thing, and they told me never tell anyone you're going to a pickle taste testing with a bunch of guys. And they zinged me on that one. So yeah, it should be interesting.
Yeah, I'm not a huge pickleball expert, but as we know, Mike, our colleague Greg Strong is a big squash player in Toronto. You were at the Leafs game last night because it ostensibly is a hockey podcast at the end of the day. What did you make of the Capitals against the Leafs in Game 2, 0-2-0, as I mentioned to Karl earlier, for the first time since the first Adam Oates season, which turned around well. But what did you make of kind of your first look at this team?
Well, I know it's 2 games in, but one thing that kind of struck me is kind of a lack of foot speed on the Capitals. And maybe that has to do with this is an older team and a veteran team. But I really thought that they looked kind of slow. And talking to some people around the team, there's kind of a fear around the Capitals that might be their Achilles heel, that they don't have the foot speed of some of these younger teams, whether it be the Carolina. I'm not going to say Florida, because Florida kind of went the grit route, added some of that. They have speed too, but some of these younger,
the Rangers, yeah,
the Rangers too, who are actually my pick to go to the Stanley Cup final out of the East. So, we can get into more specifics, but if you're talking big picture, I think that's what kind of jumped out at me yesterday was just, they didn't seem to be a very fast team.
I think it's probably all the more reason why they should have a guy like Snively in the lineup. A guy that's quick and can buzz around a little bit. And if your team isn't a team that has a ton of just raw foot speed, then the game that you play needs to be fast. You can still play fast without having foot speed, right? We've seen that before. And so maybe that's something that they're going to need to do. And the way to do that is they have to be on the same page at all times, right? That's going to be guys already heading in a direction, and the puck has to meet them there every time. They might not be that classic Capitals team that can just do puck possession and turn it up and wind it go, right? So it's a very good point. I was saying to Wino, I didn't see enough of the game to comment on that, but just from an X's and O's standpoint, if that's the way your team is made up, then it's 2 games into the season. They're definitely not going to be flying in the correct line, the correct pattern all the time yet. So hopefully that is something that can be changed.
And Zeiss, I saw just a team that was out of sorts on the power play, out of sorts at even strength, and that was part of why they couldn't play fast. Was it didn't seem like everything was clicking. The passes were just a little bit off. It just seemed like a team that was like playing a first exhibition game and wasn't playing 3 weeks after a 3-week training camp.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because it was funny that it was in Montreal on Wednesday for the Leafs season opener against the Canadiens, and it was a really, really weird game. It was almost like there were chunks of that game where you thought you were watching the first or second exhibition game of the season. Like you said, Wino, it was very, very, there was a disconnect, very sloppy, no flow to the game. And then there would be chunks where, in the last 2:30 of the game, there were 3 goals scored. Right. There were these little blips of exciting hockey where, fluid motion, teams seem to have that chemistry, and then they would lose it just as quickly as they got in. And I think you're seeing that a little bit around the league. I don't think it's at the point of the National Football League where they rest all their regulars during, some of those guys don't even play one exhibition game. And I think that transcended into the beginning of the season when you see sloppy football. And I think you see more and more NHL teams where, the regulars are only playing a couple of games, and then it's like, okay, you know what, we'll put the guys that are going to, battle for that fourth line position, or who are going to end up going down to the farm. And I think you see, and Karl made a great point using the word disconnect. There was a lot of that. And I was surprised, Wino, last night the Capitals had 2 power plays in the last 5 minutes. And, from afar, that Capitals power play, that's an elixir for disaster if you take penalties against this team, especially in a 1-goal game so late. And, they just, again, their passes, they were too slow. Instead of the one-timers, they're stopping and then shooting. And, a guy like Justin Hall, the Leafs defenseman, made about 3 or 4 shot blocks at the end of the game with the Caps on the power play. And, if you're passing the puck crisply, and Karl can attest to this, when you're trying to defend that, the quicker it goes, the harder it is for defenders to be able to get into position to block shots.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. You could tell too. It's the coaches always come in and say, it's about desperation. It's who's going to outwork who on special teams, right? And when you have an extra player, doesn't mean that you can just take your foot off the gas. Like, you still have to outwork them and beat them to the spots. And And then, like you said, crisp passes too. Like if the passes are off, like Carly had to take one shot where his feet were both in the air trying
Mhm.
to reach to a puck, right? And that's, it's I guess it's the balance between moving it fast and moving it accurately as well. And then when you're just not feeling it, then sometimes those passes end up being a foot in front of you, and it's hard to get some wood on it. So yeah, I mean I noticed that too. It was tough, and desperation by the Leafs power play or penalty kill at the end was just too much for the Caps to find a way around. So it was unfortunate. I would have loved a little fireworks at the end there, but it's I don't know. I got to keep going back to just saying it's the beginning of the season, and they're going to work on a few things. But you'd love to see a team come out firing at the beginning of the year.
There's just too much talent on this Capitals team. I mean, I didn't pick them to win the Stanley Cup, but I certainly, even though they're an older team, picked them to make the playoffs. And you're watching last night going, like you said, Carl, they're a step off. The passes might be 6 inches to a foot, just, off a guy's stick. Those things are going to come. There's too many quality players on this team for that to happen. And the other thing is you've got some new guys in there. You've got Strome. You've got Connor Brown. When you think of Anthony Mantha, I mean, his Capitals career has been kind of highlighted by being injured. So a lot of those guys are still trying to find chemistry, and I buy into that. It's great. I remember one, people will look and say, oh, well, these guys should fit in perfectly. Well, I remember the great Pac Twin when somebody once asked him, this team looks good on paper. And he said, yeah. He goes, well, you know what you use paper for? You wrap fish in it and you wipe things with it.
a great Pat Quinn line. The official position of this podcast is that the Capitals are going to make the playoffs. That has not changed after 0-2 start. When we come back on All's Caps, I want to ask you, Zeiss, about Montreal the other night and something very near and dear to Carl's heart, and also get a little bit about Ilya Samsonov, now Samsonov again pronounced, by the way, and the Leafs goaltending situation. Welcome back to All's Caps with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner and NHL.com and Mike Zeisberger, friend of the show. I'm AP Hockey writer Steve Wino. Zeiss, you were there in Montreal the other night, and one of Carl's guys, Carey Price, last player introduced with the huge ovation. What did you make of that? We'll get back to Capitals and Ilya Samsonov and all that, but first, what was that like being in Montreal the other night?
Well, first of all, I mean, where I stand on that. There's no more favorite place than I have in the league in sports than to be in Montreal, and especially for Montreal, Toronto, because it's, such a, being from Toronto, such a long time rivalry. But to me, to be in the Bell Center, there's no atmosphere like it. You look up at all the banners and everything hanging and from the rafters, and then to have Carey Price come out, and he said this week, he's got another surgery coming up on his knee. He really doesn't know if he'll ever play again. He wants to, but that is in serious doubt. As he said, he wants to be healthy enough so he can play with his kids as they're growing up. So for him to trot out there, wearing a really, really cool cowboy hat, by the way, and the ovation, I mean, and a lot of ovations just go right through you, give you goosebumps at the Bell Center. But that one, just the outpouring of love for Carey Price, it was just amazing. Standing ovation that went on for over a minute. And as Carl knows, Carey Price isn't the guy, at least publicly, to show a lot of emotion. But at one point you could see him welling up, and he tapped his heart. Wait a minute, I think the heart's over here. I'm not sure what I was patting over here, but it really was. It was almost like, I hate to say it, but it was almost like them saying goodbye and thank you. Should he come back, I can imagine there'll be a similar ovation for that. But and guys, this is. I'll just end it with this. to see that shows you how far Carey Price has come, because I remember when he was, in his early days with the Habs, he lost a series to the Boston Bruins, and in the deciding game, he let in, 3 or 4 goals. Some of them had a little bit of an odor to them, and he was getting the Bronx cheer. And I remember he emulated the famous Patrick Waugh thing, like, mocking the fans by putting his hands up like this. And I remember thinking at the time, man, this is a fan base. You will never get away with that. And somehow he did, because of his excellent goaltending and people realizing that Carey's not this somebody that, kind of pokes the bear or stuff like that. He's a down-to-earth guy. And, it was great to see that if he doesn't play again, that the Canadiens fans had a chance to really say goodbye the way they did.
Yeah, Carey is so far from forward facing. It's not even funny. Like, he does not want to be, the center of attention. He's doing his best to just stay away from all that. And I think that's something that the fans respect and appreciate. And, it's an extremely difficult place to be when things aren't going good. And then it's great in the case of that night when you see how much they can really love and adore a player that they've had over the years. And so when I watched that, it was emotional for me. And, I'm quite removed from that whole situation, but just to see him be out there, and we have a somewhat similar situation here in Washington, right? With Backy, he's trying to. He was just trying to be able to live day to day, and now he's trying to come back and actually play again, and Carey's situation may be a little bit different because he's had to go through quite a few different things over the last couple of years. And I think it's at the point now where everybody's just happy for him to be, be living in a good spot, like he's able to recover physically from what he's had going on, and to come out there, like you said, Mike, wearing what he was wearing too, like just a great guy. Like there's very few guys around the league that'll walk out looking like he's in there for a hoedown or a nice country wedding or something like that. So yeah, just awesome to see, and I'm happy that they gave him that reaction for that long. I had to text him right after that because it was like just like a flood of emotions that it's just like, oh, you want to just give the guy a hug, right? And so I was very happy to see that. For hockey, it would be great to see him come back, but at this point of his life, like you got to do other things.
Yeah, you know what, and people have to understand, for you guys, there's a life off the ice. His kids are getting to the age where he wants to spend time with them, and physically there comes a time, and especially when you've been through what Carey's been through, where you have to look at big picture. And he's got nothing to apologize for. He gave his heart and soul to that organization. Hopefully he still has a chance to do that. He didn't get that elusive cup. I still remember the looks on his face and on Shea Weber's face when they lost the deciding or the clinching game to Tampa in the Stanley Cup final. Yep. And it was almost like both of them looked at each other and said, this could be it for our careers. So, and the other thing is, as a proud Canadian, as a hockey fan, I won't forget the way that he played in the 2014 Olympics. Oh yeah. He was incredible. And anybody, even Leaf fans that might despise the Habs or fans up here that like the Boston Bruins and hate the Montreal Canadiens. I think everybody was in unison in watching those Olympics and just seeing how great a goalie Carey Price was.
Yeah, I think it's a good lesson for everybody too, just to take a step back when you're mad at a player, or mad at a team. Like there is a person behind there, and a lot of times they give absolutely everything that they have. And in Carey's case, in that last run that they had, messed himself up, mentally and physically, trying to battle through for his team. That he put himself in a position now. So just for everybody taking a step back to realize, what is going on for a lot of these guys.
Well, try telling that to the Habs fans the other night that booed Austin Matthews every time he touched the puck, because I don't really think they care.
No.
What kind of person he is off the ice.
They definitely don't care. It always surprises me how quickly goalies can go kind of off the table with injuries and all those things. But Ilya Samsonov's a young goalie. Obviously, Capitals fans very familiar with him. Now in Toronto, beat the Capitals in his Leafs debut. I don't have high expectations for Ilya Samsonov and Matt Murray goalie tandem in Toronto, but I'm curious your thoughts on Kyle Dubas putting that together, and what do you make of Ilya Samsonov's year in Toronto?
Well, first of all, from going from Carey to Samsonov, Samsonov.
It's Samsonov now.
One country's Z is another country's Z, so we have to play in with that. And by the way, you are the sultan of segues, going from Carey Price to Samsonov.
And I got one more goalie thing later because we got to promote the book. But anyway.
Okay. No, he was. I have actually been impressed with Samsonov. He, from what I'm told, and I had heard from people around the Capitals about, questions maybe about the kid's work ethic and stuff in Washington. But from talking to people around the Maple Leafs, they've been really impressed with his attitude, the way that he has been trying to improve. Well, I know maybe this is not much more than the fact that he did accept a modest deal, a 1-year modest deal, because he's trying to bet on himself. But, I look at what the Maple Leafs did. I mean, I'm on record as saying I don't have a lot of confidence in Matt Murray. I understand what the Maple Leafs are trying to do here. Back in, I think it was from 2012 to 14, he played, Matt Murray played for the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds of the OHL for Kyle Dubas, for Sheldon Keefe.
Yep.
And that's all well and good. And they keep talking about, his pedigree, and he won Stanley Cups in 2016 and 17 with the Penguins. That's all well and good. I haven't seen that version of Matt Murray in 3 or 4 years.
True.
He's been hurt a lot. And when he hasn't been hurt, and this is the kind of alarming thing, is Matt Murray is more of a positional goalie than he is a reflex goalie. And when you're like that, and you see what I've seen, which is the last couple of years in Ottawa, he seemed to lose his net at times. And if you're an angles goalie and you're having trouble getting those angles in the right, right in the perfect position, you're going to give shooters too much net to see. Cole Caulfield scored a goal the other night against Matt Murray, where Matt Murray, goalies always talk about how they have to make themselves look big in the net. He made himself look small in the net. And for somebody that's 6'2", 6'3", that's hard to do. That's alarming. I really do think that the guy that is going to have more upside is Samsonov. Oh, here we go again. Samsonov.
Well, we do this all year.
Yeah. He's, he showed jitters in the first period. There was an odor to the Capitals' second goal.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought after that, and he admitted he was nervous, but he said once the second period started, he kind of found his groove. I thought he played well. And I really do think, for better or worse, by the time this plays out, Samsonov will be the number 1 Leafs goalie. I wish Matt Murray all the best. I just don't have a lot of confidence.
Yeah, when to me, I mean, like we've said a million times, we're not goalie experts, but when a goalie makes himself look small in the net, to me that means that they're nervous that pucks are going to leak through them, right? And that probably tells that there's not a whole lot of confidence right there. So not a good sign. Fingers crossed that at least one of them works out, though, because the Leafs need a goalie. They're on the cusp of being really good. They need a goalie.
Well, there's a lot of head scratching in this town because, it's well documented, okay? The Leafs have lost 5 consecutive deciding games, which is a record in the postseason, which is a record that has never been done before in the NHL, in the NBA, or Major League Baseball. Okay. And now, after they did it again last, in the spring to the Tampa Bay Lightning, you look around the league, I'm still shocked that the Bruins let Bruce Boudreau go. I'm kind of shocked, Bruce Boudreau, Bruce Cassidy go. Yeah. I was a little puzzled given the fact that half the Golden Knights team was hurt, that Pete DeBoer was let go. So, but you've got successful teams making all these changes, and Kyle Dubas and Sheldon Keefe, and Sheldon's only been there, as the crow flies for 3 years on the calendar. But Dubas, and as much as I like him, and I think he's put together a good roster, I mean, he's responsible for that. Team president Brendan Shanahan did not offer him a contract extension at the end of the year. So therefore, going into this season. So Dubas is on the last year of his contract. So he's pretty much betting his job that Samsonov and or Murray are going to finally be the ones that push them, at least one round of winning one round for the first time since 2004. And you can gauge how long that is, guys, by the fact that I actually had hair the last time that the Maple Leafs won a playoff series. So that's putting, all your eggs in one basket on these 2 goalies, Karl, and that to me is a risk. I mean, the management has shown patience. I would argue maybe a little too much with Dubas, but it's all in the hands of their goalies.
A tough bet, but let's just think that maybe they didn't have any other options to get. Maybe no one else wanted to sign there. That'd be my only defense for him.
Well, in Murray's case, I know from people around the Senators that they almost had a party when they heard that somebody was actually going to take Matt Murray.
Right.
Oh, man.
I know Karl's got a meeting to get to. I just wanted to thank you, Zeiss, for all your help with the book, Odd Man In. You helped me a lot with getting David Ayres on the phone. You've been a very helpful person for me. And with the book coming out in a couple of weeks, I just wanted to say thank you for all your help with the book.
Well, compliments are weak. I'll expect my royalties, so thank you very much. It was my pleasure to do. It's a hell of a book. Please, anybody out there listening, watching, go get it. And thank you for having me on as the your first repeat person. Reeks of desperation, and I guess Karl's on his way to a meeting to get another job, because obviously this podcast reeks of desperation, as I said.
And as always, with Karl, with me, the royalties are paid in beer. Thanks for coming on, everybody. Thanks for listening to us on All Caps.